Hello everyone, I am Dr. Durdana Awais from Department of Commerce, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. Today's agenda is factors of production. Look around yourself. What do you see? Table, chairs, food and furniture, iron furniture, what else? Don't you ever wonder how they have come in their final form? Of course, they were once raw materials, but how they had come into their final form? Through a process. This process is called as the production process, and the raw materials which have been used as inputs are called as the factors of production. Today we are going to understand more about these factors of production which influence the production process. Let's first understand what is production. Production is a process of combining various inputs to make something for consumption. For making or producing something, we need some tangible as well as intangible materials. Tangible products are those which can be touched, felt and seen, whereas intangible materials are those which cannot be touched, felt or seen. These materials are the various factors of production. These factors of production are inputs which helps to produce goods and services and give them their final form. Why do we produce goods and services? Of course, to earn profit. Now, what are these inputs? These inputs can be land, labor, capital and entrepreneur himself. These inputs or factors of production affects the production process and determine how will the production outcome be. Land, labor, capital and entrepreneur. In economics, these are called as the factors of production. These factors of production render factor services, of course, for a price. These, and in return for the factor services, they get a payment, like land get rent, laborers get wages, capital get interest and entrepreneur gets profit. These are called as factor payments or the factor price that is being borne by the entrepreneur, or we can also say as factor cost. As such, factors of production are anything that helps in the production process. These are the various factors by means of which resources are transformed into final goods and services. They are the inputs in the process of production. They can also be called as the starting point of production process, as well as they can be termed as the parameters which affects the output of production. Let's first understand the first factor of production, that is land. By the term land, we mean not only land in a strict sense of word, but all the resources or material which are given by nature to human beings. It includes all those materials and powers of the earth on the surface or within it which are given to nature without any cost to human beings. Land therefore includes all the gifts of nature available to mankind, which is used by him to produce things to satisfy his wants. Let's understand the characteristics of this first factor of production known as land. Land is a free gift of nature. That means it is free of cost. Man does not have to spend anything. We only have to conserve this factor of production. Secondly, land is not perishable. Though its character can be changed, but it cannot be destroyed. It will exist in one form or the other. Thirdly, land is immobile. This is a peculiar feature of this factor of production. It cannot be transported anywhere. All the other factors of production has to be brought near this factor of production to start the production process. Fourthly, the land is fixed and limited in supply. It is fixed in supply because it cannot be created. Only we as human beings can improve it, clear it or change its form, but we cannot in any way increase its supply. Fifthly, it is heterogeneous in nature. By heterogeneity, we means there is difference in the nature of land. Some are marshy, some are sandy, some are barren, some are fertile. This difference leads to difference in fertility of the land. Having discussed the characteristics of land, do you think that mountains will be included in land in economics? Or forest, will they be included in land in economics? Or the oceans and its resources? Or do you think wind will be included or termed as land in economics? The rivers, the sunshine, the lakes and ponds, or the heat energy, and all the minerals which are found within the earth's surface, will that be included? Yes, they will be included in land when we understand the term land in economics. Now let us understand the second factor of production, that is labor. Labor, the human element in the production function. This labor is the human efforts that is being put in the production process, which includes both mental as well as physical efforts put in by the human beings. It is for this mental and physical efforts they are given compensation or reward. They do not do it for their own satisfaction, but to earn something in return in the form of rewards or income. When we talked about land, land is considered as a passive factor of production. But when we talk about labor, labor is considered as an active factor of production. It is together with the cooperation of land and labor, the production process is possible. Land and labor both are called as primary factor of production. It is very interesting to note that earlier economics considered only land and labor as the factors of production. According to Professor Marshall, any exertion of mind or body undergone partially or wholly with a view to earn some good other than the pleasure derived directly from work is called as labor. According to Professor Thomas, labor connotes all human efforts of body or mind which are undertaken in the expectations of some reward. As such, it is important to understand that both mental and physical efforts are included when we talk about labor, and also the expectations to earn something in return. Having gone through the definition of labor, do you think a rickshaw driver will be called as labor? Or an advocate, will he be called as labor in economics? What about the potter? Will he be considered as labor? What about a tailor, a teacher, or a doctor, or a CA? And what about a mason? Will all these be categorized as labor in economics? What do you think so? Yes, in economics, when we talk about labor, all these people will be considered as labor, though some of them are exerting mental efforts and some of them are exerting physical efforts. This difference in physical and mental efforts lead to their categorization as skilled, unskilled, or semi-skilled laborers. Unskilled laborers are those who does not require any special skills or judgments and are having simple duties, whereas semi-skilled workers or laborers are having some skills, though they do not require a high level of experience, whereas skilled laborers are those who are bound to perform certain duties for which they have to take their own decisions based on certain specialized skills. Let's discuss some important facts about labor in economics. When we talk about labor in economics, only the work of human beings is termed as labor in economics. Secondly, both physical as well as mental work done for monetary rewards is considered as labor in economics. Thirdly, any work done for entertainment or for self-satisfaction is not included in as labor in economics. Fourthly, in economics, labor has no relation at all with morality. Okay? Fifthly, any work done by animals or birds is not considered as labor in economics. These are some 5 key facts regarding labor in economics. Coming to characteristics of labor. Labor is a human factor in the production process. Because it is a human factor, it has feelings, it has willpower, and when it has feelings and willpower, it is affected by its emotions, and these emotions in turn affect the productivity of this factor of production. Secondly, it is an active factor of production. All the other factors of production are called as the passive factor of production, but it is due to this factor of production that the whole production process is possible, right? Thirdly, labor cannot be separated from the laborer. Laborer acts as an agent, and it is through this agent that a number of hours are spent on the factory premises that determines the production process. Fourthly, it is the most perishable factor of production. Other factors of production are not perishable, but this human factor of production is perishable. Why it is perishable? Because if the worker is not available on the factory premises, he cannot say that I will come next day and do the work for 2 days in 1 day. That is not humanly possible. 1 day if he is not there in the factory premises, those man hours are lost. Fifthly, this factor of production has got very weak bargaining power because it is not organized. Sixthly, a laborer sells his labor but not himself. As such, he can choose where he wants to work, when he wants to work, and at what rate he wants to render his services. If he does not like, he can even quit the work. Seventh point is, laborer is a mobile factor. Other factors of production, that like we discussed, land is fixed, but labor is mobile, though it is not as mobile as capital, but it is more mobile than land. Why it is more mobile? Because it can go from one place to another to render its services. Eighthly, it is variable in supply. If the supply of laborers has to be increased, though in short run it cannot be increased, but in long run the supply of laborers can be increased. Ninthly, no two types of laborers are same. This difference is due to efficiency and experience and training between two workers. That is why they are being paid differently in the factory premises. 10th point is, laborer is both a means as well as ends. Why it is both means and an end? It is a means of production of various goods and services, but on the other hand, it is also a factor which consumes these goods and services that are being produced. 11th point, capital can be invested in labor. When we invest capital in labor through education and training, they become human capital. Their productivity can be increased, their efficiency can be increased. Next point is, cost of production of this factor of production cannot be measured. We cannot measure what is the cost of production of one laborer. Why? Because it involves a social cost. Lastly, this factor of production has got an indirect demand. We demand labor to produce goods and services. If goods and services are demanded, then only we will demand laborers or require laborers to produce goods and services. If there is no demand for goods and services, then labor will not be demanded. As such, it is called as a derived demand for labor. Having discussed the characteristics of labor, let me ask a few questions. If a gardener works in an office, will his labor be called or his efforts be called as labor in economics? Yes, it will. But what will happen if the gardener renders his services in his own home garden? Will his efforts or services be called as labor in economics? No. What about a mother? When she brings up her child, will those services be called as labor in economics? No. And what about a teacher? If a teacher teaches his son, will those services be called as labor in economics? No. And what about a doctor? If he treats his wife, what is going to happen? Will those services be called as labor? No. Why they won't be called as labor in economics? Because they have not been done with a particular reward in mind. Let's move on to the third factor of production, that is capital. What is capital? Capital includes all man-made goods which are used for further production. A peculiar feature of this factor of production is that it is man-made, which aids in further production process. Capital consists of all kinds of wealth other than those provided by nature and created by man for further production process, which might include machine, tools, trucks, road, bridges, factories, etc. That will include invested money, machinery, buildings, vehicles, even software. Patents and copyrights are termed as capital in economics. Let's discuss the chief characteristics of capital in economics. First point is, capital is a man-made factor of production. It is created through savings, right? So it is also called as a stored up labor or crystallized labor and has a cost to be produced. Secondly, it is a secondary factor of production. Why it is termed as a secondary factor of production? Because its supply can be increased or decreased based on the amount of savings in the economy. Thirdly, a provision of depreciation has to be maintained for this factor of production. Why? Because it is a man-made factor of production, it needs to be replaced, and as such a provision has to be maintained. Fourth point, it is a mobile factor of production, which is also the chief characteristics of this factor of production. It is highly mobile and can be transferred easily from one place to another within seconds also and within hours also. Fifthly, it is a passive factor of production. It cannot be termed as an active factor of production because it is through labor and land that this factor enhances the efficiency of labor and capital, labor and land, and enhances the output. Sixthly, it has got an elastic supply. Its supply can be increased if the amount of savings are increased in an economy, whereas if savings decrease, its supply will diminish. Seventhly, formation of capital involves cost. Why it involves cost? Because capital is termed as that part of income which is not consumed, and when it is not consumed, it requires a sacrifice made on the part of individuals to save it. These savings are transformed into capital. As such, it involves a cost, a sacrifice. Eighth point, capital depends on the technology of production. More developed a country, more capital will be invested in improving the technology and reducing the burden of laborers. Let's come to functions of capital. Capital helps in providing 5 main functions. The first includes increasing productivity of land as well as labor. It increases the scale of production, efficiency, and reduces the cost of production when it is invested in land and labor. Secondly, it helps in increasing employment by providing employment opportunities by way of producing more goods and services or capital goods and services which are required to produce further goods and services. Thirdly, it raises the dignity of labor. Farmers, when they use machines like trucks to do arduous work, the same work which can be done by a plough, it increases their self-esteem and increases the dignity of labor. Fourthly, capital helps in formation of human capital. When capital invested in laborers, they, by way of training and development, they become human capital which are very much important for the development of a country. Fifthly, it is a means of adopting to technological progress. It is through capital that natural resources can be efficiently utilized. Having studied about capital, let me ask you a few questions. Can capital be called as a stored up labor? Yes, it can be. Can capital be called as crystallized labor? Yes, it can be. Can we term labor as a link between present and future? Yes, of course. Let's move to the fifth and last factor of production, that is entrepreneur. Who is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a person who brings other factors of production in one place and he uses them to ensure a process through which they are transformed into final goods and services. He is a person who decides what to produce, how to produce and how much to produce. He is also a person who takes these decisions along with the risk associated with them. It is very interesting to note that the word entrepreneur derives from the French word which means to undertake, and over the years its usage has differed. In the 16th century, the word was used for Frenchmen who organized and led military expeditions, whereas in 1700 AD, the term was used for architects and contractors of public work. After 17th century, the term was used for adventurers, civil engineers and those people who were involved in construction work. But the term entrepreneur was applied to businessmen only in the 18th century by another Frenchman. It was only in 18th century that the word was applied to dealers who purchased raw materials or combined different resources to produce a product. Another Frenchman, J.B. Say, had expanded this idea to conceptualize the entrepreneur as an organizer of a business firm central to its distributive and productive functions. According to Peter F. Drucker, the entrepreneur always searches for change, responds to it and exploits it as an opportunity. According to John Stuart Mill, entrepreneur is an organizer who is paid for his non-manual type of work. According to Frank Knight, entrepreneurs are a specialized group of persons who bear the risk and deals with uncertainty. As such, entrepreneur is a person who organizes other factors of production. For organizing these other factors of production, he undertakes risk and bears uncertainty. He does so to earn a profit. For earning a profit, he organizes them and hires the other factors of production. An entrepreneur acts as a boss and decides how the business should run. He also decides in what proportion the output will be, the premises where factory will be established, and combines all these raw materials to make a finished product. He is also loosely identified in economics as owner, speculator, innovator or inventor who organizes the business. Thus, entrepreneurship can be termed as a quality or a trait owned by a entrepreneur. Let's discuss features of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship relates to an economic activity. Secondly, it involves creativity or innovativeness. It also involves dynamism or flexibility. It means taking decisions under uncertainty. Fifthly, it involves bringing together the different means of production. Next, it also involves risk as well as it involves the ability to organize and administer. These are some key features of entrepreneurship. Having discussed these key features, let's discuss the functions of entrepreneur. The first function of entrepreneur is risk and uncertainty bearing. The second function includes control and management. Third function includes innovation. And fourth function includes coordination. Firstly, the risk has to be borne by an entrepreneur. The other factors of production do not bear so much risk as compared to an entrepreneur. Secondly, control and management is required for a number of tasks that is being dealt by the entrepreneur, like the choice of line of production, the selection of design and quality of the product, the scale of production, the size of the plant, the place of production, organization of the transportation facilities, application of innovations. All these require control and management by the entrepreneur. Also, innovations are an important part of entrepreneurship. So many new ideas come, but it is the entrepreneur who takes a calculated risk and analyze which new ideas needs to be explored. And lastly, coordination is an essential function of an entrepreneur. Why? Because an entrepreneur has to coordinate amongst various departments. He also have to coordinate among raw materials, other factors of production. He also have to select a proper tools and machinery that is being required for the production process. So many other functional areas need to be coordinated by an entrepreneur. Having discussed these functions of entrepreneur, do you think courage is a quality that is being required by entrepreneur? Yes, of course. Because he takes risk and bears uncertainty, courage is an essential quality of an entrepreneur. What about foresightedness? Yes, it is another quality that is being required by an entrepreneur. What about leadership qualities? Of course, yes. That is one of the main quality because he has to lead other factors of production to produce goods and services. Do you think an entrepreneur has to have a good organization ability? Yes, of course. And what about knowledge of business? Yes, he needs to know the tricks of the trade to survive in the business. And what about experience? Yes, experience is another quality that is required by an entrepreneur. And what about education of business administration to deal with the various functions in the business? Of course, yes. And what about moral qualities? That are also essential. Why? Because in the long run, it is these moral principles or moral qualities that ensure survival of his business. So this was all about the 4 factors of production. In today's video lecture, we have understood what are the 4 factors of production. They are the inputs to produce goods and services. All these inputs affect the production process. This was all for today's video lecture. We will meet in the next module. Thank you.